Wait, this isn't right!
Well, it's too late now!
No, I mean, we did this already!
What do you mean?
Ah, fuck it! It's nothing! Just shake these fucking guys!
Alright, let's get one thing out of the way. I'm only doing this the one time. I saw what being the final word on No Man's Sky did to Shammy, and I don't want that to happen to me. Plus, I realize flight action is too niche a genre for me to afford getting boxed in as the plane game guy. That said, when my two best received videos by far have been on plane game and other plane game, I'd be a fool to ignore Project Wingman's Frontline 59 campaign coming to PC. So yes, we're going back to the club for one more dance in the world on fire, but then that's it until P-Dubs 2. Frontline 59 is a side story running parallel to the main campaign of Project Wingman. Hitman Team's Cascadian vacation has caused some serious staffing issues for the Pacific Federation military. As a result, Federation leadership activates reserve units, including Flight K9. That's you. With the Cascadians pushing across the ocean, it's up to you to hold the line at home until reinforcements arrive. If you played the main campaign, you've probably got an idea how this goes, but don't spoil it for everybody else. Okay, let's get into it. Frontline 59 arrives with an Anniversary Edition update that makes a lot of changes to the visuals. You'll probably notice one of the biggest as soon as you start the game. There have been a number of changes to lighting and environments that broadly make for better looking levels. Mostly. The lighting is more realistic and feels more consistent from level to level. Overall, this is a good change. Levels feel more like they're happening in a real place, and some levels look quite a bit better. The finale looks a lot better. That said, there are a couple of exceptions that feel like steps back. Mission 5, Sirens of Defeat, had stunning lighting originally, but feels less inspired in the new graphics. Mission 15, Consequence of Power, features a set piece in which the environment becomes hell on Earth. This mission is a big part of the reason why the game was memed on for having a citrus fetish, but it's missing something with the new lighting. The build-up is better, but now the climax of the set piece looks less like being front row to the apocalypse and more like everything getting really dusty. I think the lighting changes are net positive, but it's not all positive, and I have a couple of nitpicks. The interface appears to be affected by post-processing in a way that wasn't the case before the 2.0 update. This makes for situations where it's too dark, or worse, way too bright. The other big change on display is the clouds. On launch, Project Wingman's clouds were fine. At the wrong angle they could look kinda flat, but I don't know anyone that was upset about Clouds 1.0. Included in the Anniversary update are Clouds 2.0. This has been extremely upsetting to some people. After spending far longer than I care to admit looking at Clouds, I think I understand why. Clouds 2.0 look fuller and better show their volume, but look off in a way that's hard to describe. They can look grainy, smudged, or more like flying cotton candy than a cloud. They clash a bit with the 2D clouds in the skybox, and the cloud layer seems flatter than in the previous release. Like Yoko Taro and Freddie Mercury, I believe fat-bottom clouds make the rockin' world go round, so this is an important issue to me. Now, noticing this requires slowing down and looking at clouds instead of blowing stuff up, so ordinarily I'd say, shut up nerd and move on. However, performance is noticeably worse with Clouds 2.0, especially in cloud-heavy levels like Cold War. I'd call these different before I call them worse, but if you played hundreds of hours with the old Clouds, I can see how different looks wrong. If you played hundreds of hours with the old Clouds and now things look wrong and run worse, that's a recipe for frustration. Missile trails look better, so at least we get one clear win from this. I guess we get two, since certain forces deform clouds now. Between the 2.0 launch and now, there have already been further lighting adjustments, so hopefully the graphics get a little more love. As for sound, it's in a good place based on what I heard. No real changes here, just the new voice work and music added for Frontline 59. There are cameos from most of the main game's cast, but the bulk of the VO is new characters, and I'd say the average quality has gone up. There are characters I knew I'd love, ones I wanted to hear more of, and one very special performance that stole the show.
Zero to everything! Here comes the big one!
Unfortunately for E6, but fortunately for us, there's no upstaging Jose Pavli. When I played Project Wingman for the first time, I didn't know what to expect from the music, and I was blown away by what I heard. Coming back for Frontline 59, I knew what I was getting into, and yet. Here are a couple tracks from Project Wingman. Do you think this is good? What about this? pretty good, right? Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Sarah, where the fuck are you going with this? Where I'm going with it is, check this out. The campaign features 18 new Jose Pavley bangers and is arguably worth the price of admission for that alone. I think the original score was great, and Frontline 59's new music is phenomenal. I've awarded a couple of tracks the very highest honor I can, not playing them in this video because I want you to hear them in the game. Suffice it to say, lightning struck twice. Overall, the presentation is good that mostly got better. As for gameplay, the flow of combat is unchanged. It's still about kicking ass and going fast, but I was surprised by how much fun I had playing the same old levels. It's been a long time since I played Wingman start to finish, and aside from occasionally putting Crimson 1 in his place, I hadn't kept in practice. But not only was getting back in the cockpit just like riding a bike, it was fun as hell. When I decided I was going to make another video, I loaded up Cold War to look at the new clouds. I looked at them, and then I played through the entire mission with a big dumb smile on my face. It's been a while since I had that kind of experience with a game. Hearing that, you might think I also had a big smile on my face playing the new campaign.
Shit, you already know I'm obsessed with it. I can't get enough. Back with another milk. Help! Help! Help me! Help!
To be clear, I had a lot of fun with Frontline 59, but playing it without derusting made me feel less like Ip Man and more like the other guys in Ip Man. It assumes you played the main game and feels like a set of challenge missions. There are only 6 levels, so it doesn't overstay its welcome or feel too gimmicky. There were surprises like new weapon types, but the bulk of the challenge came from the game ramping up the intensity of combat. In a flight action game, the player is almost always the single most powerful unit on the field, and I think the design dilemma is how to build interesting encounters around that. For Frontline 59, the approach seems to be shoot at the player constantly. I found myself frequently at full throttle trying to avoid missiles and having to give up the shot I was lining up to jink and avoid getting hit myself. The difficulty adds interesting pressure to combat. There's still no mission timers, but instead there's a greater focus on managing your health and ammo. 3 of the 6 missions test your piloting skill with challenges like fighting under low-hanging clouds or in a valley full of anti-air. Then there's Express Lane. If you've managed to make it this far without having Express Lane spoiled for you, go play it. We'll be here. I suppose the final boss is also a test of your piloting, if only because Sector D2 decided that yes, Project Wingman is a bullet hell. All in all, the gameplay is as fun as ever. I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed the base game, so that doesn't feel like some earth-shaking revelation. For better or worse, Frontline 59 is more Project Wingman. I'm glad to have it, but it's not going to sell copies of the base game on its own. The presentation is improved, but the gameplay is basically what we had 4 years ago. The thing that's most different is the narrative. Time to talk about that. Spoiler time is now time, and due to the intertwined nature of the story, it's open season for both campaigns. If you went off, jump to here. Are they gone? Okay, send it. Frontline 59's narrative is in many ways a mirror to Project Wingman's. There's the literal sense that it's parallel to the war in Cascadia, but there's more to it than that. Project Wingman is at times an anti-war war game. We see characters who don't want to fight, but do so anyway, and we witness horrifying acts of destruction done ostensibly in the name of peace. Frontline 59 doubles down on this by showing how quickly liberators can become invaders, and how freedom fighters and warmongers can fit under the same tent. The expansion takes place entirely within the Federation province of Magadan, as it's invaded by the Cascadian Independence Force. Huh. The campaign starts right after Mission 11 in the main game, where the Federation suffers a massive defeat over the Bering Strait. Flight K9's first mission is to protect the survivors of that battle from mercenaries that chased them into Magadan. The mercs are portrayed as bloodthirsty glory hounds, so you can argue that these are bad guys and the good mercs like Hitman Team stayed behind. But from the second mission on, you're fighting a defensive war against capital C Cascadians. These are the good guys in the main game. Hell, Captain Woodward is one of the most conflict-averse characters in the game, and he shows up in Frontline 59. He actually shows up twice. Setting the expansion in the Federation does a lot for this campaign. For starters, it makes it easier to avoid contradicting the main game, since all this is happening conveniently off-screen. It's also easier to play the bad guys when they're the ones under attack. Having the player not just fighting a defensive war, but also being reservists makes it easy to root for K9. They're not regular military. They thought the war was going fine until they got called up under threat of jail. K9 are underdogs, and that makes it easy to cheer them on, even if you are the indirect cause of all their problems.
I'm playing both sides so that I always come out on top.
When I covered the main game, I mentioned that there's a correlation between how developed a character is and how many missions they're in. That's still true, but Matthew Nguyen has improved as a writer, so the script does more with less this time around. Flight K9 talk more and talk to each other more. They're missing some of the chemistry that Hitman Team has, but this feels intentional. These guys are reservists with their own lives, so it makes sense that they don't have the same rapport as a full-time mercenary team. I didn't get to know K9 quite like I wanted, but that's mostly due to the short length of the campaign. While I don't care about them in the same way I care about Hitman, I think they could get there if they were to return. In general, Frontline 59 does a better job developing and humanizing the side characters. I don't care that much about Stardust, although he is better in this, and I can go either way with General Elizabeth. The Federation reservists are more likable in less time because they're portrayed as regular people who are out of their element and fighting to defend their homes. Conversely, the Cascadians are easy to hate because of how well they slip into the role of invaders. The purpose of the Cascadian Independence Force is to establish Cascadia as its own state, free from the Federation. So what are they doing so far from home? Bottom of the Barrel and Home Invasion do a great job contextualizing this role reversal. We get to learn more about characters new and old, like how General Faust's Magadan invasion isn't entirely approved of, and how Crimson One is just like that.
So this is what we've resorted to. Let the dogs fight it out. Crimson Squadron, regroup. We need to get back to Cascadia.
Reserve Division, thank you. Crimson out.
Nice to know at least one of them is not an asshole. I think flight action stories are at their best when they're like a radio play that you get to listen to while you blow stuff up. Home Invasion is a masterclass in this. From the word go, the Fed ground forces know that it's going to be a very bad day. The player keeps it from getting worse, but the presentation and dialogue build a desperate atmosphere. It's cold, gray, and things are looking bleak. Then we pick up the second scariest radar contact possible.
We have a long-range contact! Federation Navy! Thank God. Federation Navy contact? No, scratch that. Incoming enemy battleship.
Fuck me. Featuring the Eminent Domain as a hostile unit is great. The main story tells us that the Domain is a monster of a ship, but seeing it as an enemy lets the game show us what it's capable of. The poor bastards on the ground had no idea what was coming, but I did, and that makes the moment more affecting. 4 years ago, and also like 4 minutes ago, I said that Project Wingman is an anti-war war game. Neither of these guys have told me I'm wrong, so I'm going to keep saying it until that changes. Home Invasion, and later Magadan Front, reinforce this message by making the lines of good guy and bad guy blurry. You and the other reservists are the good guys, because you're protecting your homes. We know from the main story that Captain Woodward is one of the good guys. But how good can he be when he's shelling your good guys an ocean away from home? Project Wingman gets dark, but sometimes Frontline 59 makes me want to play something lighter, like, I don't know, Dead Space. Thankfully, Mousetrap and Express Lane offer a break from the horrors of war by letting you inflict them on others. These missions have a greater focus on gameplay and reminding the player that war is badass sometimes. I appreciated the relative quiet time that these levels give. Home Invasion is heavy, and these offer lighter fare, like flying a jet into heavy flak and anti-air fire. Express Lane is particularly interesting for dialogue that suggests the Cascadians aren't just there to disrupt the flow of Federation troops across the Pacific. It's also interesting because Project Wingman hasn't had a mandatory tunnel run yet, and what a first. This is a highlight of the campaign thanks to good framing, and maybe the hardest Pavli banger yet. That's good, because it's followed by one of the bleakest missions in the game. Magadan Front is set in the same place as Home Invasion, now even more dreary due to Cascadian attacks on Magadan's power infrastructure. The objective is simple: drive the Cascadians from Magadan. More than anything else in the campaign, this mission is a remarkable union of presentation and gameplay in service of theme. Your team's morale is as bleak as the view outside the cockpit. They're tired, worn down, and just want to go home. They've been ground down by the machine of war and are ready to do anything to be done with it. That made the second half of the mission that much more striking to me. The music drops out as Captain Woodward radios the Federation, admitting defeat and asking for mercy. This moment feels like the entire battlefield is holding its breath waiting for the answer.
Stand by. Stand by. Stand by. Understood. Relay. Crystal Kingdom denies the request. Proceed with hostilities. Very well. Continue the engagement. Cut this channel to the rebels.
If Frontline 59 has a message, it's that it's all too easy for the Protectors to become the Butchers. The Cascadians crossed that line when they invaded Magadan, and K9 is called to cross it here. You want the Cascadians gone, and the Cascadians want to be gone, but letting them leave isn't good enough. Your orders are clear. Kill them all. Is it just punishment for their invading in the first place? Maybe. The only thing I know is that violence breeds violence, and the Cascadians are all too happy to oblige. There's a little fanfare or celebration at the end of Magadan Front, and I think that's a good thing. Sometimes art is uncomfortable, and in this moment Project Wingman chooses to remind you that war makes men into monsters. It's not in your face about it, and I don't think it would have helped if it was. Like with Consequence of Power, jumping in front of the player to say, "War bad," would undercut the message. It's more effective for showing you a massacre, this time one you carried out, and giving you time to reflect on it without the game providing a judgment. I've thought a lot about this mission since playing it. It's probably the best in the campaign in terms of how it builds up the narrative. It holds up a mirror to missions in the main campaign that I never stopped to think about, and explains why Woodward is more than a little grumpy in Red Sea.
Lay into them! Send them all to the bottom! Kill them all so they may never return!
This could have been Frontline 59's finale, and I think I would have been satisfied with that. It's heavy and reminds me of the Cascadia is in ruins. You win. Note that the base game ends on. Frontline 59 ending with this mission would invite introspection. Is the Flight K9 who cut down fleeing enemies all so they could go home the same K9 that left? But that'd be a real downer, and it's not Project Wingman without a bullet hell final boss, so on to Faust. The final mission of Frontline 59 is a showdown with Cascadian General Faust, the mastermind of the invasion. In my first video, I offered up the idea that Kings is a Project Wingman final boss as opposed to an Ace Combat final boss, and Faust feels like an extension of that theory. It's heavy on spectacle, with Faust fighting you in a massive airship, bristling with weapons and escorts. This is a suitably dramatic finale, and I was satisfied with the challenge of the final boss, but I feel like it tries to do too much in too little time. The mission solidifies that while the CIF wants to win the war, Faust wants to destroy the Federation. This is great characterization. It makes her a more hateable villain, and shields the main game's good guys by making her an extremist. It also squeezes into one mission, her motivation, a weird flex about how she's willing to do very bad things to win, the notion that her forces are as fanatical as she is, more lore teasing about the Oceania War and how it's crucial to the current state of the world, and a diplomat moment for every member of your team. This is a lot to fit in right at the end. Faust speaks in every mission of the campaign, which feels like a response to how few appearances Crimson 1 had. This works because I feel like I know more about Faust, but the campaign is so short that a lot of characterization gets backloaded right at the end. The diplomat moments don't land here because I don't know Faust like that yet, but also because I don't know K9 like that. The original Dip moment didn't just work because of Crimson 1's character, it worked because of Diplomat, the idea that he was criticizing not just Crimson, but the cliché of the monologuing antagonist, and the sheer surprise of the rant. Out of K9's pop-offs, the only one that lands for me is Vita's, and it's because of this.
I hear you, Federation AWACS. I know where you come from. You should know better than this. You've seen it before in your homeland what the Federation does to a country.
You don't get to say that. You Cascadians did more damage to Oceania than the rest of the Federation combined. You all belong to the dogs. Kill them all, K9.
Diplomat and Vita both snap in response to the antagonist. This feels like natural dialogue, like the characters had enough of the other and lets it rip. The rest of K9's rants come unprovoked and aren't responded to. That makes it feel less like an argument and more like I'm saying this line because the script says that this is where I say this line. Lightning does strike twice here, and that's worth praising. It just doesn't strike 5 times. The fight itself is challenging. I had to restart a few times, and it took some work to find openings to attack. Enemy reinforcements keep it from feeling like Faust is a damage sponge, and the super flak is appropriately scary for the final battle. The ending ties into the main game nicely, raising more questions about the nature of the deal before leaving us with a satisfying fireball and a familiar set of lights in the sky. We still don't know what the deal is, but if Faust is right, the state of the world on fire is more dire than I thought. Arby, Fan, Jose, do you guys need, like, a hug? It feels like a waste to do away with evil Kira Buckland in a side story, especially since she did so well in the role, but I'm hopeful that Faust will appear in the Project Wingman dating sim. You guys don't understand. I can fix her. So that's Frontline 59. All in all, I'm really happy with it. It's short, but feels like an all-killer, no-filler expansion of the Project Wingman universe. It does a great job using the alternate perspective to fill in blanks and recontextualize the main campaign. Crucially, it also doesn't feel like it steps on the main game's toes. Nothing in Frontline 59 feels like a retcon, and if anything is, then congrats to Matt Nguyen for successfully pulling a fast one on me. Unless you feel very strongly about the water cycle, just about every aspect of the game feels improved. It took a while for this to come to pass, but Sector D2 is still very much a small team, and to me, the result was worth the wait. This is easy for me to recommend. If you liked Project Wingman, you'll almost certainly like Frontline 59. If watching this piqued your interest and you haven't played the main game yet, start with that first. I may be done talking about this game, and I am, but I hope it continues to get some love. There are some unfulfilled promises regarding Mercenary Mode and Conquest, and I'd like to see what Sector D2 does with them. Plus, I was personally promised more two-seaters, and as the one true Prez stan, I won't rest until I get them. More than that, I want to see these developers grow, and I want to explore the worlds they're making. Project Wingman started as a one-man show, but I think it's come to rival the King of the Flight Action Mountain. I hope that these guys want to keep making games, because I want to keep playing what they make. I'm grateful for the fun I had, and if it inspired the other flight action indies in development, I'm grateful for that too. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.